President Shen, in a desperate bid to rescue his beloved Omega, has extracted my glands. He claims that I owe him this debt. My son, in a fit of anguish, weeps and wails for the Omega to become his new father, sneaking into my hospital room in the dead of night to surreptitiously inject air into my foreline. There is no need for such haste. My demise is imminent. I inquire of the system, when shall I be freed from this world? The system replies, now. 1. 6 years ago, had I not inadvertently stumbled into Shen Yunhui's chamber during my travels, he and Lu Shu would have been on the verge of an engagement. I vividly recall the disdainful gaze Lu Shu cast upon me when she barged in during that absurd latter half. It was rife with fury and revulsion, as if I were something vile. At that moment, Shen Yunhui's teeth were still embedded in the nape of my neck. I made a desperate bid to flee, only to be dragged back by him. I became his irrevocable mark. My entire being was saturated with the potent pheromones of a vulnerable alpha. Lu Shu, pinching her nose, ordered others to pull me from the bed and doused me with a bucket of cold water. A fierce argument ensued, and I left in disgrace, hastily concluding my travels and returning to the orphanage. 3 months later, I collapsed in the hospital due to a severe deficiency of paired alpha pheromones, and it was then that old Madame Shen appeared. Turned out I was pregnant. Lacking both parents and yearning for a family of my own, I decided to keep the child, as I had no other options. Old Madame Shen welcomed me into the Shen family estate. Lu Shu had departed abroad. Shen Yunhui believed I had usurped what rightfully belonged to Lu Shu, and thus he punished me. Little Ku was cast into the care of old Madame Shen the moment he was born, while I became his plaything. He would whimsically force me into a state of heat, watching coldly as I became infatuated with him, pleading and displaying my most undignified self. Bound by the irrevocable mark, I was eternally ensnared by his pheromones. I had attempted to resist and escape, but prolonged deprivation of his pheromones drove me to madness, causing headaches, vomiting, relentless fever, and agony such that even the silk sheets felt like blades against my skin. Moreover, the Omega instinct compelled me to submit to him, to yearn for him. I found myself unable to abandon him. 2. I regarded little Ku as my soul tether. Yet he did not reciprocate my affection. Raised under the care of old Madame Shen, with tutors and caregivers, each time I sought to see him, I had to exert every effort to appease Shen Yunhui. He clung to Shen Yunhui, requesting him to read English picture books. When I read to him, he criticized my pronunciation. The drawings I created for him would soon find their way to the trash, while the robots Shen Yunhui bought for him were placed lovingly by his pillow. The handmade cookies I baked for him were fed to the dog. His water gun had only ever been aimed at me, and it stung. He regarded me as a mere pest, an unsightly blemish on his pants. He would demand that I feed him, and only when reminded by Shen Yunhui would he reluctantly call me father. I always felt he was too young, easily swayed, and that it would be better once he matured a bit more. But time passed and he turned 5. 6 months ago, Lu Shu returned to the country, and Shen Yunhui celebrated with a citywide fireworks display. Lu Shu began to frequent the Shen family estate, appearing inseparable from Shen Yunhui. Shen Yunhui, having regained Lu Shu, treated him with utmost tenderness, his gaze filled with profound affection. Little Ku was enamored with Lu Shu. To him, Lu Shu was of noble lineage, bright and gracious, with eloquence that surpassed mine, making him the ideal match for his father. The three of them grew increasingly close, while my position within the Shen estate became ever more precarious. The compatibility of my pheromones with Shen Yunhui's intensified my dependency. When he refrained from contact for over half a month, I began to fall ill once more. On the day I could scarcely rise from bed, Shen Yunhui was taking little Ku to Lu Shu's art exhibition. The disdain of those around me was palpable. Thirsty and ignored, I mustered the strength to rise, only to collapse to the floor. My heart raced, my limbs turned cold. I feared I was nearing death and erratically dialed Shen Yunhui, pleading for help. His tone was curt as he stated he had more pressing matters and could not be at my beck and call. I heard little Ku conversing with Lu Shu on the other end. He.s. just pretending. He must be jealous of Uncle Lu. Let him fall ill and die. I want Uncle Lu to be my new daddy. In that moment, my heart felt extinguished. 3. Yet that day Shen Yunhui returned. The following day, just as I began to recover, I was struck down by a barrage of chaos as little Ku burst into the room. He mounted my waist, clawing at my hair and face while hurling insults at me. You vile creature. You wretched thing. You made Uncle Lu cry. I gazed at this little monster atop me, It was only today that I comprehended the truth. Half of his blood flowed from Shen Yunhui, and the other half was still Shen Yunhui's. With a swift motion, I shoved him off me. He was taken aback by my aggression. Falling to the ground like a rolling gourd, humiliated and perhaps genuinely hurt, his eyes reddening with unshed tears. The servants, who had previously vanished during my moment of distress, now re-emerged, clamoring to assist him, their words laced with accusations of my cruelty. I did not comfort him, maintaining an expression of cold indifference. Seeing this, Little Ka lunged at me once more, shouting, "I'll kill you, you filthy peasant, you lowly being who climbed to power through your body. Because of you, I can't hold my head high in front of my friends. You've ruined me. You're not my father." His eyes were filled with hatred. These words were evidently his heartfelt sentiments, the origins of which I did not know, nor when he had begun to harbor such thoughts. I expected to be pierced by his words, yet my heart remained eerily silent. Just as the situation threatened to escalate further, Shen Yunhui returned. He seized Little Ku, admonishing, "Stop this nonsense." Little Ku, obedient to Shen Yunhui, began to wail uncontrollably. Later, I learned that Lu Shu, in an effort to console Little Ku, had taken him away from the Shen household for a few days. The specifics of those days mattered not to me. Their familial bond was none of my concern. For, not long after, Lu Shu suddenly fell ill, a perplexing ailment, characterized by glandular degeneration. Old Madam Shen took me to the hospital. I beheld Lu Shu lying in a hospital bed, clutching Shen Yunhui's hand, weeping as he expressed fears of never being able to conceive. Little Ku clung to Lu Shu's waist, tears streaming down his cheeks. Shen Yunhui declared his intention to transplant my glands to Lu Shu. Observing the ever-smiling old Madam Shen beside me, I understood that a decision had been made. I calmly articulated to Shen Yunhui the consequences of such a decision. Losing my glands will subject me to a plethora of lifelong repercussions. I might plunge into madness due to a drastic drop in hormone levels, rapidly deteriorate, require medication for the latter half of my life, and I may not even live past 50. Shen Yunhui, as if having anticipated my response, swiftly retorted, "This is what you owe Lu Shu." I was not surprised by his perspective. Look at him, dressed impeccably, strikingly handsome, with a prestigious lineage, an alpha atop the social hierarchy. Even if he bound my hands and pressed my neck, ruthlessly taking what he desired from me, I felt as though I owed him not just my existence, but the world itself. Very well, I acquiesced. For the Shen family was not seeking my consent. They were merely informing me. Additionally, I was weary of this cursed permanent mark. Shen Yunhui had not anticipated my agreement, and his prepared words fell to the wayside, his long lashes fluttering in surprise. His icy demeanor softened just slightly as he condescended to explain, "My relationship with Lu Shu is not what you perceive. I promise to care for him until he finds his alpha. You already have Little Ku. Lu Shu requires this gland. I will compensate you. With today's medical advancements, the impact will be minimal." He appeared earnest, even placing a reassuring hand upon mine. That very night, I was ushered into the operating room. 5. How amusing. Just as my glands were excised, the news arrived that Lu Shu's condition had been misdiagnosed. 6. In the hours following the anesthesia, as its effects had yet to fully dissipate, I pondered why my fate had diverged so profoundly from reason and logic. It was only after the system emerged that I found the answers I sought. In the world I inhabit, a narrative of ABO dynamics unfolds, characterized by two male protagonists enduring torment. I find myself an unfortunate soul, having accidentally transmigrated into this tale, only to be forsaken. My existence seems to be predestined for suffering. The system informs me that, to atone for its oversight, it is willing to restore my health using points or to transport me away from this realm. Please take me away. Shall you not reconsider, host? The system elucidates that my corporeal form is bound to this world. Should I depart, the body lying on the hospital bed will retain only the ability to breathe autonomously, gradually succumbing to decay and death. It suggests that I linger a while longer to bid farewell to those I hold dear here. As I awaken from my stupor, I behold a figure, Xiao Ku, standing by my bedside, surreptitiously injecting air into my foreline. He is eager to make room for his new father. Very well. I shall leave them to Lu Shu. I inquire of the system, "When can I escape this world?" The system replies, "In now." My soul begins to gently detach from my physical vessel. I finally achieve the vantage of an observer, casting a fleeting glance at the me ensconced upon the hospital bed. A pallid, frail, and emaciated Omega, with dark circles under its eyes and cracked lips, still hints at its former beauty, akin to a wilting mountain plum blossom, embodying all traits of torment. I bestow upon it my complete withering, hoping that when we are reborn, we may encounter the springtime. Host, it is time to depart. EMM. Subsequently, I am twisted and drawn into a spiraling black abyss. As my consciousness wanes, I catch a final glimpse. Shin Yunhui and the surgeon stand in the corridor outside my door, deliberating the fate of my glands. The dim lighting bleaches their figures, rendering the scene akin to a black and white film, difficult to immerse in. The doctor wears a troubled expression. Excising the glands is akin to uprooting a tree. Once the tree is gone, and the roots severed, even if you attempt to replant it, it shall inevitably wither. Shun Yunhui's face betrays a hint of guilt. Let us discuss this once he awakens. A sardonic smile threatens to break forth, but it becomes irrelevant. Suddenly, Shun Yunhui turns toward me, seemingly sensing my presence, and calls out, "Wengu." With that sound, everything before me disintegrates into dust. I plunge into darkness. Time elapses, though I cannot ascertain its length, before I awaken with great difficulty. I find myself lying in a simply adorned apartment. A hand rests upon my abdomen. Turning, I discover a man, unclothed, slumbering beside me, broad-shouldered and sturdy, yet possessing an androgynous visage. His fair skin and long, thick eyelashes frame a tear mole beneath his eye. His identity eludes me momentarily, leaving me momentarily bewildered. The man stirs, rubs his eyes, and greets me with a benign smile. "Good morning." As the blanket slips from him, revealing numerous marks upon his body, I am struck with astonishment, springing upright and dashing into the bathroom. System, what is happening? As my question hangs in the air, I glance into the mirror above the sink and behold my true appearance. My features bear a close resemblance to those of the ABO world. Yet devoid of the influence of secondary gender, I am merely a relatively handsome young man, with a sturdy build and slightly coarse skin. Memories flood back. My identity in the real world mirrors that of the ABO realm, a painter orphaned at a young age. I have been afflicted with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Upon realizing that my fingers began to atrophy and tremble, rendering me unable to lift a brush, I hastily utilized my meager savings to acquire this apartment I had long coveted. Then I traveled, indulging extravagantly. Upon returning, I drafted a will, visited a bar, and in a drunken stupor, whimsically brought home the most handsome man I could find. Yet, in truth, that night, aside from reveling in drunken antics and scrawling on the man's body, I accomplished nothing. Awakening in the middle of the night, I left him a card as compensation for emotional distress. With beer and 200 sleeping pills, I sought to end my life. Of course, I failed, as the system presented me with an opportunity to undertake a transmigration task in exchange for my survival. Host, I am here. What do you wish to ask? What of my illness? It is cured. I lower my gaze to my hands. They are nimble, warm, and radiate a healthy hue. My eye sockets begin to warm with emotion. I quietly exit the bathroom, intending to dismiss the man beside me. After my experience with Shin Yunhui, I am disinclined to develop any intimate relationships, be they emotional or physical, within the foreseeable future. The man dresses and states, "If you're fine, I shall take my leave." I am taken aback. "What? You were intoxicated, and I cared for you throughout the night. I need to head home and catch up on sleep." Is it merely that? The sincerity in his gaze leaves no room for pretense, and I feel a pang of shame for my assumptions. Before departing, he points to a cactus painting in my living room and earnestly inquires, "Is this painting for sale? Do you like it?" Little Xiao likes it. I'd like to show it to her. Little Xiao, Pei Xiao Xiao. Recognition dawns upon me, he is Pei Su. In my decision to embrace death those days, I was so engulfed in fog that I paid little heed to those around me. Pei Su was the original owner of this apartment, reportedly without a wife, while Pei Xiao Xiao is his child. He sold me the property and now resides in the adjacent building, my neighbor. I am uncertain whether to feel mortified or relieved that I did not inquire about his name. Hastily, I retrieve the painting and sincerely express my gratitude. "This is a gift for you. If you need anything in the future, do not hesitate to ask. I owe you a favor." Yet, as Pei Su immediately responds with, "May I ask you for a favor?" I find myself momentarily taken aback. He wishes to find an art tutor for Pei Xiaoxiao and believes my proximity makes it convenient for her to come to my home for lessons. The words have already left my mouth, and there is no turning back. However, I am somewhat apprehensive about children, so I hesitate to agree. Pei Su lowers his eyelashes, revealing a hint of disappointment. Xiao is not easy to teach. No one is willing to take her on, or I would not trouble you. I reluctantly acquiesce. The system suddenly muses within my mind. How I wish to recruit him as a strategist. Yet it offers no further commentary. The system departs once it perceives my health has improved, as it must attend to new hosts. Before leaving, it inquires whether I desire real-time updates regarding the Shen family. I decline, wishing to prevent them from intruding upon my newfound existence. I begin to readjust to this world that rightfully belongs to me, reconnecting with former teachers and friends, resuming practice in familiar studios, and seeking art dealers to sell my paintings. Unfortunately, my previous extravagance has left me financially depleted. The remaining time is devoted to teaching Pei Xiaoxiao. Indeed, she proves challenging to instruct, possessing a strong will and lacking artistic talent. I teach her the fundamentals of points, lines, and planes, yet she prefers to paint spheres and whimsically doodles turtles. I do not impose upon her. Instead, I accompany her in drawing eggs with tree branches, seizing every opportunity to impart snippets of artistic knowledge, and she grows fond of my presence. Pei Su often sits nearby, occasionally sketching in his notebook alongside us. Much like Pei Xiaoxiao, he only draws what he desires, often faces that are skewed and misshapen. At times, I cannot help but correct his grip on the pencil when observing his awkward lines. The more I teach him, the worse he seems to draw. When I chide him, he merely smiles sheepishly in response. As time passes, I grow familiar with both of them. Pei Xiaoxiao begins to rely on me. She nestles against my knee, tilting her chin up, gazing at me with her round, sparkling eyes. Wengu, may I call you Agu? Agu, you are so talented at drawing. I want to see your art. I envisioned a dog's tail wagging vigorously behind her, rubbed my eyes, and placed the paintbrush back in her hand. She continued to hum softly while painting a turtle. At this moment, Pei Su would arrive with neatly cut fruits, admonishing Pei Xiaoxiao while simultaneously feeding her, occasionally extending the same courtesy to me. In this room, 3 individuals, an affectionate child, filled a certain hidden void within me. As we reached the 20th lesson, a torrential rain fell, causing Pei Xiaoxiao to arrive late. Just as I began to think they might not show up, a knock resounded from outside the door. Upon opening it, I found Pei Su standing there, drenched. He appeared quite statuesque, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. His semi-transparent shirt clung to his well-defined chest, which was barely visible. His face, paler than usual from the cold, had droplets of rain on his eyelashes, and the corners of his eyes, reddened by the downpour, made the beauty mark beneath his eye even more alluring. He looked down at me and said, "Wengu." I nearly slammed the door shut. "What's wrong?" I asked, my ears warming and my gaze flitting awkwardly. Looking up seemed impolite, while looking down felt even worse. "I forgot to bring an umbrella and my keys," Pei Su replied, his voice hoarse with a hint of nasal congestion. "The keys are with Xiaoxiao. She went to her grandmother's house. Before she returns home, may I borrow your bathroom to take a shower?" My instinct told me it was inappropriate to let him in, but just as I hesitated for a mere 2 seconds, Pei Su hugged himself and let out a loud sneeze. Reluctantly, I stepped aside to let him enter. Pei Su apologized repeatedly as he hurriedly made his way to the bathroom, water squelching beneath his feet. The sound of the shower soon filled the air. I lingered in the living room, feeling the atmosphere grow awkward, so I went to the bedroom to fetch him some clothes to change into. Just as I found a pair of pants that would fit him, a loud thud came from the bathroom, followed by silence. Alarmed, I rushed to open the bathroom door. He had collapsed on the floor, lying on his back, seemingly unconscious. His body was flushed red, his broad shoulders and narrow waist, along with long legs, fully visible. I hurried to help him up, but as I did, my hand brushed against his feverishly hot chest. A sudden shiver coursed through my body. This sensation felt wrong, and I abruptly thought, was Pei Su trying to seduce me? Though I couldn't discern through the pheromones, my instincts sensed an unsettling ambiguity. His entire weight fell onto me, and I shook off the errant thoughts, hastily wrapping him in a bath towel and laying him on the sofa, retrieving my phone to call for emergency services. "Don't." Pei Su grasped my wrist and pulled me down. His gaze was hazy, and his strong chest pressed tightly against me. My entire body stiffened, and my heart raced uncontrollably. "I'm cold," he murmured, burying his head into my neck, sending shivers down my spine. He lifted his head, his warm breath drawing dangerously close to my lips. "Pei Su." Pei Xiaoxiao's voice abruptly broke the spell from outside the door. I instinctively pushed Pei Su away. My ears flushed as I hurried to open the door for her. Pei Xiaoxiao rushed in with the keys and a change of clothes, launching into a passionate tirade. "Pei Su, did you forget your keys? Why didn't you wait for me in the rain? What if you catch a cold?" Pei Su remained in the position I had shoved him into, completely unresponsive. Sensing something was amiss, I reached out to touch his forehead, recoiling immediately from the heat. He had indeed caught a cold. The consequence of his illness was that both he and Pei Xiaoxiao ended up staying at my home. I administered medicine to Pei Su and prepared porridge for Pei Xiaoxiao. To prevent the cold from spreading, I made them sleep in separate rooms, the master bedroom and the guest room, and, at Pei Xiaoxiao's request, told her a bedtime story. As I turned off the lights, she leaped up and kissed my cheek. "Agu, good night." I stood frozen, unable to muster any expression. It wasn't until her face visibly turned anxious that I realized my eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "Agu, what is wrong?"
"I'm sorry."
"Are you very sad? You won't commit suicide, will you?" I was taken aback by her words, wiping my eyes and inquiring about the source of her concern. Pei Xiaoxiao confessed. "Pei Su noticed you sitting on the balcony, dazed, and thought something was off. He watched you for several days. When he encountered you at the bar, you were attempting to harm yourself with a fruit knife. He said you needed to surround yourself with more warmth." Hence I gazed at Pei Xiaoxiao in astonishment. She misunderstood, nervously tugging at her clothes. "Don't be afraid, we're not bad people." I felt a swell of gratitude. "No, I must thank you both. I had been harmed against my will in the past and had suffered from serious illnesses with no one to care for me. The only individuals who had genuinely shown concern for me over the past 6 years were these unfamiliar strangers." After ensuring Pei Xiaoxiao was asleep, I numbly returned to the master bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching Pei Su, who lay unconscious. Remembering my earlier misjudgment of him attempting to seduce me filled me with shame. At that moment, so many thoughts flooded my mind, yet I found myself at a loss for words. When I finally regained my composure, my cheeks were damp with tears. From that day forth, I instinctively began to regard both of them as my new family. I would take them on picnics, gift them paintings, and accompany them to art exhibitions. Eventually, I encountered a long-lost teacher at an exhibition, who introduced me to several prominent figures in the art world. Under their guidance, I resolved to prepare for a solo exhibition. My previously stagnant life began to flow with renewed vigor. Everything moved toward the betterment. Until when I heard the knock on the door and opened it, only to be enveloped in a tight embrace, I was taken aback to see Xiaoku behind the one holding me. "Wanggu." The newcomer clung to me tightly, pressing his nose into my neck, instinctively seeking my scent. Soon, however, he stiffened, realizing something was amiss. My body bore no trace of the familiar aroma he recognized. Shen Yunhui released me, stepping back to scrutinize me. I returned his gaze. Shen Yunhui appeared thinner. His once-fitted suit now hung loosely on him. With sunken cheeks and dark circles under his eyes, the sharpness of his gaze dulled. Without the influence of pheromones, I realized his demeanor and looks were not particularly remarkable. Xiaoku turned his face away, adopting a sulky expression, clearly unwilling to meet my eyes. He clutched a gift wrapped in colorful paper, which had already begun to tear. In that moment, I recognized that I had not thought of them even once since then. The love and hate within the Shin family's old residence felt like a distant memory, and the current versions of them stirred not a single emotion within me. Perhaps I had changed too much. Shin Yunhui was hesitant to approach me. He studied my face, tentatively calling out, "Wanggu?" "Wrong person," I said, decisively shutting the door in his face. I was oblivious to how they had arrived, mentally calling out for the system in search of answers, but received no response. Pei Su and Pei Xiaoxiao were dining in my home. Noticing me standing by the door in silence, Pei Su approached with his bowl in hand. "Wanggu, who is it? I don't know them. Don't worry about it." Just as the words left my lips, the knocking resumed, more insistent than before, as if it would not relent until granted entry. Pei Su glanced at me, then reached for the door, pulling it open. This time Shin Yunhui stood even closer, a smile plastered on his face. Upon catching sight of Pei Su, his expression shifted dramatically. "Who is he?" I frowned, remaining silent as I saw no need to explain. Shin Yunhui, Noticing the bowl in Pei Su's hands, felt his anger surge. I went to great lengths to see you, and you found a new man? Xiao Ku, too, caught sight of Pei Su and me, incredulously exclaiming, Daddy. The weight of those two statements was overwhelming, nearly causing Pei Su to drop his bowl. Pei Xiao in the living room also dashed over, peeking her head between me and Pei Su. What Daddy? I sighed, patting her head. I don't know them. Xiao Ku stomped his foot in anger. You gave birth to me. How could a man give birth? As I spoke and prepared to close the door, I declared, You have truly mistaken the person. Perhaps you should seek elsewhere. Shin Yunhui hastily grasped my arm, saying, Wengu, I can explain. Pei Su intervened, pushing his hand aside. Sir, please conduct yourself with dignity. Shun Yunhui, already irritable, seized Pei Su by the collar, ready to retaliate. Pei Su's eyes blazed defiantly, unwavering. Ah! Pei Xiao shrieked, rushing forward to clutch Shin Yunhui's leg and bite him. Xiao Ku discarded the gift box to shove Pei Xiao, only to have her tug at his hair. As the atmosphere grew tense, I swiftly kicked Shin Yunhui behind the knee, causing him to collapse to the ground with a thud. I then pulled Pei Su closer, embraced Pei Xiao, and shut the door. My movements were fluid and seamless. Wengu, Shin Yunhui's furious voice erupted from outside. What are you doing? Xiao Ku joined in the commotion, shouting, Father. I, growing impatient, retorted, I have already said you have the wrong person. Leave now. Shin Yunhui persisted. If you do not open the door today, I shall not depart from here. Very well. I retrieved my phone and dialed 110. Perhaps in the world of ABO angst literature, there are no police. Shun Yunhui was escorted away by the authorities, his face a mask of disbelief. He glared fiercely at Pei Su, warning, be careful. Then he was pushed out of sight. Xiao Ku, stunned, shot a resentful glance in my direction before following Shun Yunhui, her eyes reddened with unshed tears. Once they had all departed, I turned back to escort Pei Su and Pei Xiao home, only to find them exchanging furtive glances. I understood that these matters might be complicated and confusing for them. It was a pity, for I truly wished to continue our interactions as they were. They seemed to reach a silent consensus rather quickly. Wengu, take me home, Pei Xiao declared, approaching me with a carefree demeanor. I grabbed my keys, took her hand, and stepped outside with Pei Su. The journey from Building A to Building B took no more than 3 minutes. Pei Su's demeanor remained unchanged. He continued discussing art classes and exhibitions as we walked. Pei Xiao, ever direct, halted us as soon as we reached the ground floor, gripping my arm. Wengu, that child must truly be your son. He resembles you greatly. Does he? I forced a smile. During my time at the Shin residence, Grandmother Shin and the staff often remarked that Xiao Ku and Shin Yunhui were cut from the same cloth. As if that could erase my influence in Xiao Ku's genes. Xiao Ku took pride in this. No one had ever remarked that he bore any resemblance to me. Lost in thought, I suddenly collided with Pei Su's back. I looked up to find him halted as well, our eyes locking in a moment filled with unspoken words. I sighed and inquired, You may not believe this, but do you know about ABO? ABO, transmigration system. I endeavored to succinctly explain everything to Pei Su and Pei Xiao. Pei Xiao's mouth fell open in astonishment, while Pei Su appeared surprisingly composed. He seemed to fully accept my explanation. So, you are not currently inhabiting the same body. That is one way to put it. Does that mean you can consider those events merely a dream? A dream? Pei Su chuckled softly. Indeed, I have experienced some rather terrifying dreams, such as plummeting from a cliff and shattering into pieces. Yet upon waking, nothing had transpired, and I even grew taller afterward. His method of consolation was quite unique. I felt a sense of relief and patted his shoulder. You should be cautious in the coming days. Shin Yunhui mistakenly perceives you as his rival, and he may take action against you. Pei Su gently removed my hand from his shoulder, grasping it lightly instead. He gazed at me, his eyes deep as pools of ink, infused with the glow of the moon. He is not mistaken. What? I am his rival. This revelation struck me like a thunderclap. I was momentarily dumbfounded, forgetting my previous intentions. So, you like me? Yes. But aren't you straight? I had assumed you were straight as well. I have tempted you numerous times, yet you remained unresponsive. Even the day you brought me home from the bar, you merely babbled nonsense while tracing red beans on my skin. The moonlight danced among the shadows of the trees, and silence reigned, broken only by the chorus of insects, birds, the whispering wind, the rustling of grass, and the faint sound of a heartbeat echoing from an unseen source, all rendered strikingly clear in the night. It suddenly dawned on me how exceptionally handsome Pei-su was. His gentle eyes were captivating, his tear mole charming, and his blood-red ear-lobes alluring. The moonlight flowed like liquid from the tip of his elegantly shaped nose to his delicate lips. The tension in his lips tightened slightly, as if they might part to reveal a mirage. I found myself stirred by emotions. When I realized that this feeling was unrelated to pheromones, I was particularly keen to preserve the sensation of the moment. However, Pei-su had a daughter, which rendered him an unsuitable choice for me. I withdrew my hand, stating, "This is not feasible. I am uncertain whether my feelings for you are merely transference." Pei-su's smile faltered. He lowered his lashes, speaking softly, "It was ill-timed of me. I simply cannot control myself." Amidst our silence, Pei Xiaoxiao, who had been overlooked, piped up, "Oh, Wengu, please give my uncle a chance. He has never pursued anyone and has been racking his brains daily to get closer to you." I was taken aback. "Uncle? My parents are no longer here. My uncle is the one who takes care of me." Pei Xiaoxiao spoke with feigned nonchalance, but the droop of her mouth betrayed her melancholy. Yet she quickly rallied her spirits. "I thought my uncle refrained from dating because of me. It turns out he simply hasn't encountered someone he likes." She beamed, taking my hand, and then Pei-su's. Becoming my aunt would be a 2-for-1 deal. Consider it. I found myself speechless, caught between words as I gazed at Pei-su. He looked at me with a pitiful expression. "You need not make a decision immediately. I merely wish for you to know that I will always stand beside you. I will wait for you." Pei-su's demeanor was bewildering, so much so that I found myself contemplating his endearing quirkiness late into the night. After months of absence, the system finally made its appearance, casually greeting me as I drifted in thought. I jumped in surprise. "System? I heard that Shen Yunhui and Shin Ku have arrived." "Yes, what is happening? You can see for yourself." No sooner had the words left its mouth than the scene of a hospital room materialized before me. I lay calmly on a hospital bed, an oxygen mask over my face, my attire and bandaging suggesting that I had recently undergone surgery to remove my glands. Shin Yunhui sat at my bedside, his gaze unwaveringly fixed upon me, lost in thought. Suddenly, the fingers of me twitched, causing Shin Yunhui to sit up straight, leaning forward with a look of trepidation. Yet I made no further movements, rendering the previous moment a mere figment of Shin Yunhui's imagination. He settled back into his seat, an imperceptible sigh of relief escaping him. I understood the reason behind this. He wished for me to awaken while simultaneously fearing that I would. He was aware of the extent of the harm I had endured. Before long, Lu Shu entered, wearing an apologetic expression. "Yunhui, you should rest for a while. This situation is my fault. I should have clarified my own circumstances before." Shen Yunhui's facial muscles twitched in an odd manner. Unlike before, he did not reassure Lu Shu by saying, "It is not your fault," creating an awkward pause in their conversation. Lu Shu hastily added, "When Wengu awakens, I will apologize to him. However, you have already kept vigil for 2 days. If your health deteriorates, how will you care for Wengu in the future?" Shen Yunhui was persuaded to rise from his chair, perhaps having sat for too long, his steps faltering slightly as he stood. Lu Shu hurried over to support him. Shen Yunhui did not refuse, albeit with a somewhat unsteady gait. He followed Lu Shu outside. Before departing, Lu Shu cast a glance at the bed where I lay, a disdainful smile gracing his lips. The scene shifted, revealing Shen Yunhui, now clad in a different set of clothes, standing before the hospital bed. With a grave expression, he inquired, "Why hasn't he awakened yet?" I lay with closed eyes, visibly emaciated, the back of my hand protruding with grotesque, bony contours. Lu Shu, old Madame Shen, and Xiaoku were also present. Xiaoku appeared unable to confront the sight of me, clutching onto old Madame Shen's clothing, retreating behind her. Shen Yunhui questioned the doctor beside him. "He has been in a coma for 7 days. The doctor replied, "We cannot ascertain the cause." Shen Yunhui seized the doctor's collar, exclaiming, "What are you doing?" The doctor remained composed. "Mr. Shen, we informed you of the risks prior to the surgery. You reviewed the agreement. Anesthesia complications, surgical bleeding, unforeseen infections, and complications were all explained, and you signed accordingly." This statement provoked Shen Yunhui. He released his grip, his form wavering as he collapsed onto the hospital bed. He reached out to touch my hand, absent-mindedly tracing my bony fingers. Old Madame Shen interjected on behalf of the doctor. No one wishes for such occurrences. Let us first inquire about the subsequent treatment options and chances of recovery. The doctor straightened his collar and replied candidly. The patient's body is in a state of extreme weakness, seemingly devoid of a will to survive. It may remain this way indefinitely. Shen Yunhui, regaining his focus, asked, "What do you mean it may remain this way?" "A vegetative state," the doctor answered. Xiao Ku, in a state of panic, looked up at Lu Shu, only to catch a glimpse of Lu Shu's lips curling into an uncontrollable smirk. Shen Yunhui sprang up violently, unable to accept the news. "I recall you stating he would awaken soon after the surgery." "Yes, but for reasons unknown, his condition began to deteriorate rapidly thereafter." Shen Yunhui gritted his teeth. "Review the surveillance footage." At this point, I closed my eyes, already foreseeing the impending events. In the hospital corridor, Shen Yunhui forcefully kicked Xiao Ku to the ground, whipping him mercilessly with his belt. "You heartless wretch. He is your father, and you dare to wish him dead." Xiao Ku crawled in distress, sobbing like a dinosaur. Old Madame Shen and Lu Shu pretended to admonish. "Why are you hitting the child?" while retreating, fearful of being implicated. A passing nurse witnessed the scene and intervened, snatching the belt from Shen Yunhui. With his weapon taken, he resorted to lifting Xiao Ku with one hand and striking his face with 3 resounding slaps. Xiao Ku's face swelled dramatically. "I warn you, your father is gone. You shall no longer be a child of the Shen family." Xiao Ku finally broke down. "What facade of benevolence are you putting on?" He broke free from Shen Yunhui's grasp, screaming hoarsely. "You all knew I wanted Lu Shu to be my new father. Haven't you all thought the same?" Upon his words, the expressions of those present shifted dramatically. Lu Shu hurriedly glanced at old Madame Shen, who pressed her forehead, appearing to suffer a headache from the outrage. Shen Yunhui, his face ashen, lunged at Xiao Ku. Xiao Ku fled 8 feet away, hiding behind a nurse, shouting in defiance. "It was you who told me he was a lowly omega, a filthy being. No matter what I did to him, you all said it was fine. It was Lu Shu who deceived him into falling ill. It was you who extracted his glands, and it was Grandma who taught me to inject air into the fore. Why am I the only one being punished?" Shen Yunhui pursued him a step before suddenly clutching his chest and kneeling, as if overwhelmed by unbearable heartache, his breathing rapid and labored. The scene began to shift incessantly. Shen Yunhui sat once more at my bedside, grasping my skeletal hand, his visage utterly haggard. I was covered with a white sheet, being wheeled into the morgue. Shen Yunhui, intoxicated at a bar, was pulled by Lu Shu, only to push him away violently. His countenance darkened as he gripped the steering wheel, while Xiao Ku, seated in the back seat, clutched a gift wrapped in colorful paper, anxiously asking where they were going to find father. The car plunged into the ocean. The scene abruptly halted. The system informed me, "We feared the collapse of the small world, so we sent them over. You see, they both love you dearly, though they remain unaware." I scoffed. I failed to see it. The system asserted, "Now they regret their past actions. Would you consider granting them a chance? You could attain a fulfilling conclusion and receive numerous task rewards." I declined, revealing a particular incident to the system. On the 3rd day of my return to this world, while shopping at a nearby department store, a tall man, emanating a citrus fragrance, approached me. My initial reaction was to pinch my nose and check for others in the restroom, preparing to admonish this presumptuous alpha for releasing pheromones inappropriately. However, upon seeing my reaction, the man simply appeared embarrassed, sniffing his sleeve, inquiring if he came off too strong, suggesting that perhaps his girlfriend had playfully sprayed him. In that moment, I realized there were no pheromones in this world. There were no alphas or omegas, no heats, no rutting periods, no markings. I would not allow a single misstep to alter the trajectory of my life. I was not compelled by instinct to become anyone's plaything. I could breathe freely. Do you know how I reacted? I told the system. I squatted down and wept openly before that man, causing him to flee the restroom in fright. The system responded, "I understand." It ceased its attempts to orchestrate a reconciliation between me and Shen Yunhui, fading into silence as it had upon arrival. Shen Yunhui and Xiao Ku entered this world, evidently bereft of the privileges once afforded by the Shen family name. I was unaware of how they had escaped from detention. The next day, they evidently sought to enter the community to find me, but I had specifically instructed the gatekeeper to bar their entry. Both were still dressed in the same clothes, wrinkled and worn from a night spent in disarray, presenting a pitiful sight. Upon returning to the community after breakfast, I observed the gatekeeper shaking his head disapprovingly at them, lamenting how Shin Yunhui had forsaken his job and prevented his child from attending school, opting instead to embarrass himself here. Concurred. Xiao Ku, furious, stomped his foot. The young master could hardly endure being pointed at by someone he deemed lowly. He lunged at the gatekeeper but was swiftly restrained by Shin Yunhui. In the struggle, Xiao Ku caught sight of me and immediately descended from his father's grasp, biting his lip in distress. "Father, take me and Dad home. It's so cold outside." I ignored him, turning to instruct the gatekeeper to open the gate. Xiao Ku's face flushed with anger, and just as he was about to utter something, a loud rumble emanated from his stomach. I turned at the sound to see Xiao Ku's eyes fixed intently on the bag of meat buns I held. Upon noticing, Shen Yunhui spoke, "Wang Gu, I know you have a hard exterior but a soft heart. This bun." I shook the paper bag in my hand, watching as Xiao Ku's eyes lit up, only to suddenly toss it outside the gatekeeper's booth. A small mutt dashed out from the booth, barking excitedly, tearing open the paper bag, devouring the warm meat buns. "Feeding dogs," I remarked. Shen Yunhui and Xiao Ku's expressions darkened. Just as I intended to enter, Shen Yunhui grasped my arm. "Wang Gu, no matter how upset you are, Xiao Ku is still your son. How can you stand by and watch him go hungry?" I extricated myself from his grip, brushing off the dust from my arms. "He is your son, not mine." With that, I turned my back on the two and began to enter the community. "Daddy, how can you treat me like this? I won't give you any gifts," Little Ku shouted from behind me. I glanced back to see him unwrapping a drawing from colorful paper. It was a piece I had drawn for him at the old Shin residence, which he had previously discarded. He was trying to convey that he had retrieved it and did not harbor such intense dislike for me. Yet I felt indifferent. Just throw it in the trash. I may have underestimated Shin Yunhui's determination. He chose to remain in this world with Little Ku. Shen Yunhui possessed remarkable abilities and theoretically could thrive here, yet he had a fatal flaw: he was undocumented. When no one was watching, it wasn't a problem, but when under scrutiny, it became exceedingly difficult to secure a respectable job. The next time I encountered him was with Pei Su and Pei Xiaoxiao, who had gone out to watch a movie. While Pei Su went to buy bubble tea, I waited in vain for his return. I descended the stairs with Pei Xiaoxiao to the tea shop, only to find Shen Yunhui, clad in the bubble tea shop uniform, fiercely assaulting Pei Su on the ground. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and I panicked, rushing over to pull Shen Yunhui away. "What the hell are you doing?" Shen Yunhui had completely lost his sanity. Even as I held him back, he kicked Pei Su, nearly striking Pei Xiaoxiao, who was on top of him. "What are you pretending for? You were just beating me mercilessly." Shen Yunhui. I could no longer contain myself and slapped him across the face. Shen Yunhui was stunned by the blow. Standing at 179 centimeters with a sturdy build, my slap caused his cheek to swell significantly. He touched his face, his expression shattering. "Do you know what kind of person he is? No matter what job I seek, he sabotages it, forcing me to resort to sweeping floors and washing dishes. He provoked me first. He hit my stomach. You didn't see that. You only saw him fall to the ground, pretending. Do you have any idea how exhausting my days are? Who do you think I am staying here for?" I was taken aback, looking down at Pei Su. He weakly clutched his chest. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have told him we were going out for dinner and a movie. I couldn't help it. I wanted to boast." Agu was willing to give me a chance, and I was genuinely thrilled. Huh? When did giving someone a chance become a topic? But it seemed not entirely incorrect. "You!" Shen Yunhui's eyes bulged with rage. The crowd began to murmur, with words like homosexual, explosive, and stealing a husband floating around, casting numerous curious and disdainful glances in my direction. I felt as though I had returned to the old Shin residence. Little Ku somehow squeezed into the crowd. Upon seeing the situation escalate, he instinctively assumed it was my fault and lunged at me. "Bad person. You harmed my daddy." Before he could finish, Pei Xiaoxiao stood up, inhaled deeply, and with hands on her hips, launched into a full-throated tirade. "You all are so ungrateful. You can't even stand up properly, blah blah blah." She spoke in dialect, but I could tell she was defending me, though her sentences were peppered with explosive phrases like turtle sun, shovel, and punch, which shocked my orderly life of over 20 years. The onlookers were thoroughly drenched in her verbal barrage, and the crowd dispersed in a frenzy. Pei Xiaoxiao's figure stood tall like the street bully I had feared in my childhood, instilling in me a profound respect. She concluded, "Anyone Pei Xiaoxiao, stands up for cannot be bullied." I joined Pei Su, who was still on the ground, in applauding her. Shin Yunhui still grasped my arm, and after a moment of contemplation, I shook off his grip and said, I apologize. My friend struck you. I shall convey his apologies to you. What compensation would you consider acceptable for reconciliation? Shin Yunhui stared at me in disbelief. You are apologizing on his behalf? I nodded. You, Shin Yunhui stammered, clenching his fists, and through gritted teeth, declared, I want you to accompany me to the hospital. I rummaged through my wallet, extracting all the cash within. This is all I have. I see you have no visible injuries, so this should suffice. Shin Yunhui trembled as he asked, So you still refuse to accompany me? I replied, I have more pressing matters. To watch a movie? Indeed. He clutched the bills tightly, ultimately saying nothing more. Pei Su weakly leaned against me as I helped him up and led Pei Xiaoxiao onto the escalator. I queried Pei Su in exasperation, what were you thinking? Pei Su replied anxiously, I wanted to stand up for you. Plus, I was afraid you might go soft on your ex-husband. I chuckled, playfully tapping Pei Su on the head. After the film, I discovered Shin Yunhui and Little Ku seated on a bench outside the cinema. Shin Yunhui appeared weary, while Little Ku curled up asleep beside him, looking quite small. I suddenly realized that the Shin father and son, accustomed to a life of luxury, had likely reached their limit. Upon seeing me, Shin Yunhui patted Little Ku and stood up. Pei Su quickly positioned himself in front of me. Shin Yunhui remained still, his demeanor relatively calm as he stated, we merely wish to apologize. I wore a blank expression as I regarded them. After a brief silence, Pei Su thoughtfully led Pei Xiaoxiao aside. Wengu, I am sorry, Shin Yunhui said, patting Little Ku. Little Ku sniffled and echoed, Daddy. I'm sorry. At long last, I received their overdue apologies. Curiously, I expected to feel a sense of relief and satisfaction, yet I remained untouched. Back at the old Shin residence, I had envisioned a day when they would deeply regret their actions. I had soothed my tumultuous feelings of indignation and grievance by imagining them kneeling and weeping. But in reality, having returned to a normal world with healthy relationships, I quickly regained my balance and dispensed with the emotions that only served to drain me. The father and son continued to speak. Little Ku hung his head, tugging at the hem of his shirt. I was not good to you. I should have stood by your side to protect you. Shin Yunhui also expressed his sentiments. I did not understand my own feelings and have done many things to hurt you. All right, I understand. You may leave now. The Shin father and son were taken aback. They had been coddled all their lives and held immense confidence in their intimate relationships, believing that as long as they were willing to turn back, everything could be mended. They never expected that after humbling themselves to apologize, they would not receive forgiveness. Little Ku's tears streamed down. Do you not want me anymore? Do you prefer Pei Xiaoxiao? I am your biological son. As Shin Yunhui observed me preparing to walk away, he quickly grasped my arm. Wengu, I have not slept a single night soundly since you became incapacitated. My feelings for Lu Shu are merely tinged with regret. He clung to me, asking for a permanent mark, saying he would lead me out. Yet each time I closed my eyes, I felt you beside me. I love you. I have loved you for a long time. It was my arrogance and foolishness that caused me to lose you. By the grace of heaven, I have been given a second chance to approach you. I truly cannot live without you. I beg for your forgiveness. But I do not love you. Shin Yunhui was left speechless, the latter part of his statement caught in his throat, his expression resembling that of a goose choking on its own neck. That year, I mistakenly entered Shin Yunhui's room while traveling. There were 8 of us on the trip, and I was the only one raised in an orphanage. Shin Yunhui remarked that sweeping and washing dishes was exhausting, yet I had been performing similar tasks since I was 14. To afford a decent set of paints, I had to wash 300 bowls or don a mascot costume and stand on the street for an entire afternoon. I painted tens of thousands of pieces to gain admission to art school, receiving the same opportunities as everyone else. Naturally, I had envisioned a day when the world would behold my art. Yet all of that vanished after that day. I have offended the Lu family, and my reputation has been tarnished. No one dares to purchase my paintings any longer. I find myself in dire straits, residing in a basement, marked permanently by Shin Yunhui. I remain unaware of my pregnancy, and that period felt akin to hell. I endured nights of excruciating headaches, vomiting, and sleeplessness, my glands burning as though I had been pierced by searing iron wires. At the time, I attributed my suffering to a lack of pheromones, suppressing the urge to seek out Shin Yunhui until I collapsed and was admitted to the hospital. It was only after the arrival of Elder Shin that I learned of my pregnancy with Xiao Ku. I had no choices. None were ever afforded to me. You say I owe Lu Shu. What do I owe him? He is the one who noticed me stealing glances at you, and deliberately bribed the front desk to misdirect me. He forgot your sensitive period, relishing my misfortune, arriving late to orchestrate this very outcome. Shen Yunhui, I refuse to believe you were unaware. Even if we take a step back, are you innocent? You marked me, caused me to conceive. Was it not you who betrayed Lu Shu? What reason do I have to love you? Is it merely because you so deftly extracted my glands? Shen Yunhui stood before me, nearly at a loss for words in the face of my tirade. He stammered, I know I have wronged you. Grant me a chance to atone with the remainder of my life. I responded with a cold, disdainful laugh. I do not require that. Then what is it that you desire? What I sought was already obtained the moment you extracted my glands. Suddenly, I leaned closer, whispering softly in his ear, Shen Yunhui, reverse marking must be quite distressing for you. The color drained from Shen Yunhui's face. I possess a deeper understanding of Shen Yunhui's being than my own. After entangling with me for so many years, I had the power to take or give as I pleased. He was acutely aware of my profound reliance on his pheromones, yet he remained oblivious to the fact that his dependency on mine was even greater. I discovered he had been reverse-marked by me during my second year at the Shen family estate. He believed he had never sought another Omega, thinking himself virtuous, but the reality was that he simply could not. He might have easily consented to Lu Shu's request to extract my glands, perhaps believing Lu Shu would be an exception. Regardless, even in the event of a failed transplant, an alpha can mark multiple omegas, and thus what harm could it pose? However, it is indeed unfortunate. He is incapable of marking anyone but me. Shen Yunhui queried, stuttering, You have known all along? Why did you not tell me? I took a step back, replying, Why would I share such anguish with you? The involuntary pain, the thirst, the chaos, the rage of unfulfilled desire. How could I bear it alone? Yes, no one in this world can satisfy him any longer. He would gradually descend into madness, perpetually feeling as though 1,000 ants were crawling in his mind, suffering from pain, vomiting, sleeplessness, and an uncontrollable fury that drove him to want to tear everything apart until he became a lunatic. Shen Yunhui erupted in anger, his pheromones surging violently, exuding a terrifying aggression that permeated the air. The once subtle citrus scent that only alphas and omegas could perceive erupted as if hundreds of perfume bottles had shattered, wafting even to passers-by across the street. Xiao Keskivico, overwhelmed by the pheromones, sank to the ground, tears streaming as he clutched at Shen Yunhui's pant leg, calling for his father. Shen Yunhui remained unmoved, yet the pheromones no longer affected me. I stood tall amidst the overwhelming, acrid scent that had shackled me for half my life, smiling radiantly. Shen Yunhui, I suggest you have your glands removed. It would be a permanent solution. Once they are gone, you will no longer have to endure. Pei Su and Pei Xiaoxiao rushed towards me. Shen Yunhui lunged at me. I heard the system's metallic voice in my mind. Excessive intervention, retraction. The moment his fingers reached for me, Shen Yunhui vanished from my sight. Pei Su and Pei Xiaoxiao, startled, hit the brakes but ultimately made their way to my side. Are you all right? Wow Agu. Is this some sort of magic trick? I now believe you have traveled to other worlds. The citrus scent began to dissipate as I knelt before Xiao Ku and helped him to his feet. Daddy, Xiao Ku sobbed, wanting to embrace me, but I restrained him by his shoulders. Shinku, I called his name. He gazed anxiously at my expression, unable to quell his sobs. I once regarded you as a gift from the heavens. Yet now I have come to understand the truth. Look at him. He increasingly resembles Shen Yunhui, with sharp brows, cold eyes, and a darkness lurking within, akin to thorns entwined in a place untouched by sunlight. I once embraced him so sincerely, allowing him to pierce me with countless wounds. He is my flesh and blood, yet also the ailment that has grown within my body. Only by parting ways can I secure my own survival. In this world, many fathers and sons are not truly so. Rather, they are entangled fates. My desire to bring you into this world was one-sided. Your existence is a debt I owe you. Now that my debt is settled, I release you. I have found the child I desire, and I hope you too can find the father you seek. The system subsequently sent Xiao Ku away. It apologized to me, stating that I should not bear the consequences of its errors, and assured me that the Shen father and son would never again disturb my peace. Soon after, my solo exhibition was scheduled. Observing visitors gathered before my paintings, discussing and praising them, filled my heart with an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Finally, I have reclaimed everything I lost across 2 lifetimes. After the exhibition concluded, Pei Su drove me and Pei Xiaoxiao to the seaside. I recognized the car's emblem. Previously, when Shen Yunhui mentioned that Pei Su was constantly obstructing him, I had surmised that Pei Su might possess more wealth than I had anticipated. He must have intended to reveal his true self to me. Sure enough, upon reaching the beach, he showed me the fireworks blooming across the shoreline. That day when you shared that you had found the child you desired, both Xiao Xiao and I were overjoyed. Beneath the fireworks, Pei Su stood beside me, gazing at me with tender affection. Initially, I thought if you wished to return, I could be your friend. Though I could not restrain my feelings, your happiness is what matters. I furrowed my brow in disapproval, and he quickly grasped my hand. I have come to realize that I cannot place my happiness in others' hands. Wang Gu, would you allow me to become a part of your happiness? How could one possess both the purity of a lotus and the ability to wag their tail so skillfully? What could I do but agree? 6 months later, Pei Su and I obtained our marriage certificate abroad. The happiest among us was Pei Xiaoxiao, who ran around the room, brandishing the certificate. The success of my solo exhibition had elevated my reputation. Now, the sale of a single painting suffices to purchase a new home. My artwork now adorns Pei Su's office. His true identity is that of a president of a publicly traded company, but that no longer matters. The system reappeared on 2 occasions to inform me of the fate of the Shen father and son in the original narrative. Originally, Shen Yunhui could have avoided his descent into madness simply by having his glands removed. However, fearing he would no longer maintain his status in high society, he forcibly extracted Lu Shu's glands and had mine transplanted in their place. My glands were preserved in the hospital for several months. However, their vitality waned, leading to a severe rejection after the transplant, rendering Lu Shu incapacitated. The Lu family retaliated against the Shen family, resulting in Shen Yunhui's imprisonment for kidnapping and bodily harm, with a reported sentence of 10 years. Elder Shen suffered a heart attack and was subsequently admitted to a nursing home. The Shen family fell into decline, and Xiao Ku was sent to distant relatives, where it is said he was frequently beaten and lived in dire conditions. Yet, none of this concerns me any longer. The end of the narrative has come. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next story.